What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Teddy Atlas. By popular demand, I was told to look at this video by Teddy Atlas. He has a pretty successful podcast on YouTube called The Fight. Okay, and Teddy Atlas's spiel on Deontay Wilder's Glovegate theory was very interesting. Okay, and I want to share it with you first off. Teddy Atlas said that he will not argue with Tyson Fury's flimsy gloves. Okay, legendary boxing trainer Teddy Atlas had this to say on Deontay Wilder's accusations against Tyson Fury. Okay, of course, Deontay Wilder backstory said that to Fury, he said, "You scratched flesh out of my ears," and calls him a thief. And Teddy Atlas said this. He said, basically, you would have to blame yourself a little bit if something was put in there. Okay. He said, because you just saw the clip of Wilder's team in Fury's dressing room. He had his people there watching, clearly implying that the accusations had no value whatsoever. He said, "What is this bullshit?" Deontay Wilder continues to rip Tyson Fury. Let me let you guys listen to a little clip of that.
Couldn't be replaced. So all those precautions are taken. Basically, you would have to blame yourself a little bit if something was put in there because you just saw the picture, right? You just saw the picture, and he had his people there watching. So. Now listen, I will not argue that his glove, there's pictures of his glove looking flimsy and almost unattached. I will not argue that. I will argue that there's a horseshoe in there or a piece of metal in there or anything like that. I'll argue that. Because if it was flimsy and there was something in there, you would have saw it bouncing. It would have been bouncing around and it would have been making some indentation in the glove where you would have recognized something like what's going on in there? Where they got golf balls in there? But no. So, but I will admit that it looked like a flimsy sort of glove that, and what can do that? In one way, you could hurt your hand with that. Yep. Let's point everything out. Could you slap the guy in the face and slap him and then use that to set up another punch? I guess you could. All right. But you could also break your wrist. You also have less of a fist, less of a solid fist to hit somebody with. There's more of a risk of breaking your hand. And also, it's not for power. That's not going to help you with power. Having a limp, the way I'm trying to illustrate it here, having a limp glove, right, and a limp hand, and you.
So what Teddy was saying is he won't argue that the glove looked flimsy or stretched. It did, and I want people to understand that Teddy Atlas is one of the most unbiased guys that we know, obviously. Okay, and what he said was, if you saw the pictures. So what he's saying is, if you saw the pictures, that means you saw the shit in the ring. And if you didn't see it in the ring, you got to blame yourself or the people that's with you, because they could have saw that easily, that the glove was flopping around like that. And another thing, I must address this, okay? The Tyson Fury fight where the glove was all flopping around and flimsy like it was not in the second fight, the fight that he lost. Okay? It was in the first fight. That's what he was talking about. That's what he was addressing. Okay? So he was addressing the way that glove looked, and it was in the first fight where it was flicking around like that and turning around and throwing those punches. Now, he won't argue that, but did it have anything in it or not? Well, if it did, again, you have to blame the people that was in charge of watching that on your behalf. And the person that was in charge was JD's, the head coach. So that means the head coach didn't see anything or didn't recognize, why is that glove looking the way it looked? Why does it look the way it does? Okay, so why is that the case here in this situation? Why does it look all janky and jacked up and floppy? But if it was something in the glove, you would have saw that was something that he was flicking in the glove. And Deontay Wilder would have already felt that too, because what a lot of people don't know about Deontay Wilder, he swells easy. Look at the Dudapas fight. Dudapas is not a hard puncher, but he punched him hard enough to do what? Swell. Okay? He was swelling in the Gerard Butler fight, and that only lasted 5 rounds, 6 at the most. I think it lasted 6 rounds. I mean, I think it was ended in the 6th round, but he was swelling. Wilder swells easily. So if something was in that glove and he was flipping it like a whip, you know, and to keep it and whipping it, and it was hitting him, and he would have felt like, yo, something ain't right about that glove. You know, and if he couldn't acknowledge that, somebody else could have, Mark Breland or JD's. They could have saw, you know what, something ain't right about them gloves. Now, to only go back and say, well, you know what, he was cheating in the first fight too, that only shows, first of all, the people that's accusing him of that, you got to blame yourselves. You got to blame the alphabet channels. You got to blame the corner of Wilder, and you got to blame Wilder himself. Why? Because none of you motherfuckers bothered to see this coming the first time. No one said anything about this the first fight. This all came after the second fight. Don't you think that's strange? Think how strange that looks. Oh, well, you know what? He was cheating in the first fight too. You mean you guys didn't catch that? You guys didn't catch that. You know why you didn't catch that? Because you guys are not professionals. You guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't acknowledge things because it wasn't important to look at certain things. The things that they were actually should have been looking at is what happened in the first fight. They would have had a case if they, after the 2018 fight was over in December, if they would have said what was wrong with Fury's glove then. They would have had a very valued case, because then people would have saw like, whoa, there is something wrong with that glove. And then this would have happened. This would have been more insult to injury, more evidence on more evidence. But to bring all this shit up at one time proves that you didn't even catch it the first fight. That means you weren't looking for it. That means the team wasn't looking for it. That means, but do you know why? The number one reason why you weren't looking for it is because Deontay Wilder did not lose. And when you do lose, you look for excuses of any kind. That's basically what we're dealing with. Look, I had an interview with Tate Jones, and me and Tate Jones were chopping it up on this interview. And I specifically asked Tate, I'm like, well, what could he benefit having a glove that flopped around like that to help him? And he was like, well, I really couldn't answer the question. You know, well, I know it was something cheating, and then it's, well, okay, well, I mean, it's probably a veteran tactic, because what was the strategy in the first fight with Ben Davison? You know, keep him back with the jab. So if he had to stretch it out a little bit to slap it to give him more range, so Wilder wouldn't counter with that overhand right, that might have been the case. Okay, Tyson Fury might have done that because he knows he can stay back just as far to see that right coming, because Wilder was televised. He was telegraphing that fight. He was telegraphing that fight on a televised pay-per-view event. Okay, that's what he was doing the whole time. Now, you have to, like I've told Tate Jones, like Teddy Atlas told the world on his podcast, you can't argue about the first fight. But to bring the second fight in there with the glove and this, that, and the other, and then just to bundle them all together, and you have to formulate some type of evidence, no. And it looks bad on their behalf, because they should have caught that shit the first fight too. Because this is not just the first fight that they have a problem with the issue all of a sudden, mind you. Okay, so it's not that. It's not that at all. But like I said, it goes back to the person that was responsible for looking at how the glove looked when he put the shit on, and his name is JD's. I can't say this enough. And so I would respect the LDBC more, anybody on that platform and those consortium of channels, if at least somebody had the balls enough to come after the guy that was really responsible for alleged cheating. and his name is JD's. I would have mad respect for him. And since they don't do it, I might as well do it. Okay, because I'm the one that's calling it fair up the middle. So guess what? JD's is responsible for any type of possible accusations, because there wouldn't be any cheating if he would have caught and did his fucking job. Counterpunch. Okay, so it is interesting to hear what Teddy Atlas had to say about this particular video. You guys tell me what you think about Teddy Atlas's comments. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.